welcome to my video, which is going to be a quick overview of the 7800X 3D paired with a 7900 XT. We'll talk about tuning and optimization, as well as basically a parts list of what my system is comprised of. As you can see in Timespy, it'll achieve a 26,000 score. This is the parts list of basically what my system's built with. The two changes are the storage and the power supply. I have an EVGA 850 GQ, which currently looks like it's out of stock. This is a similar EVGA power supply. My storage, the storage drive that I have is a PCI 4 gigabyte drive, and this is another drive that's similar performance. Total build cost is just under $2,000 right now. I wouldn't pay over this for this graphics card. The target price for the 7900 XT should be $750 or less. Ideally, you want it around the $700 mark. But right now, prices have kind of crept back up. I'm anticipating probably second week of January you're going to see these prices come back down again when Nvidia announces their Super Series. Not a big fan of Ryzen Master. I just loaded it just so that you could see the settings that my system has. I'm running an all-core -30 curve optimizer. I highly recommend using a negative curve optimizer. I do all cores. You can squeeze more performance out doing each individual core, but it's quick, it's easy, it's not complicated, doesn't take tons of time. You literally a few clicks in your BIOS. I recommend doing everything in the BIOS and not using Ryzen Master. After this video, I'll probably take Ryzen Master off of my system. Not a super big fan of that software piece. We'll go over my timings. This is the current timings that I'm running. I'm running SK Hynix RAM. The timings are 30, 38, 38, 38, 28, 68, 4, 8, 26, 16, 48. You can pretty much copy all these times in a TRFC of 490, and I'm running a VSOC of 1.30. These two timings were the default, so you can ignore putting those in. That's just what my RAM when I switch to XMP. I recommend if you do that, if you buy a whatever SK Hynix kit that you buy, that you turn on your Expo settings and then go through and after you've turned on Expo and manually adjust some of your timings under Expo. Your TRFC2 and your TRFC-SB, just leave them at auto. AMD doesn't really use those timings. With Intel it matters, but not with AMD. You'll find that tuning RAM is different on AMD and Intel, so these are Intel settings. Even if you have SK Hynix A-die, the timings are going to be different whether you're running the Intel or AMD platform. Speaking of memory, you can see here's my memory. Here's what it actually defaults to under Expo. You can see that it defaults to 30, 40, 40, 96, 136, and obviously I changed those timings all the way from 136 down to 68, and TRAS is down to 38, and then my other two timings are running at 38 versus 40. You can see that I'm running SK Hynix. Here's the actual model of the chip that I'm running. They are two 32 gigabyte sticks for a total of 64 gigabytes. when you're talking a build in the $2,000 range, when you're putting, you know, this much money into your graphics card and your processor, go ahead and spend a little more. Now you can, for about $105 to $110, you can get a 32 gigabyte kit of 6000 CL30 memory versus 188. But to me, it makes sense if you're buying this level of system to go ahead and go with 64. 32 is kind of the standard, but spend the money now instead of buying a kit and then 6 months down the road or a year down the road decide it's not enough and then now you're rebuying memory. Buy your memory once and it's good for the life of the system. And it's cheaper than buying the memory twice. Big thing when you're looking for memory, uh, look for 6000 CL30. So that's usually going to yield you SK Hynix memory. If you try to copy these timings with Samsung or Micron memory, it's going to crash. It's not going to be stable. It's probably not even going to post. So the timings I just showed are definitely SK Hynix timings. Don't try them on anything else. For the motherboard, you can see that I have the Pro B650P Wi-Fi made by MSI. I am running the latest BIOS. Make sure if you get the motherboard that you make sure that you update the BIOS to the latest BIOS that's available, especially to get your AGESA should be 1.0.9 or higher. That's going to help with the stability of the RAM and stuff as they increase the different versions of the BIOS. You get more stability as they've fine-tuned the systems. And we'll go over the tuning of my memory, or not memory, sorry, the tuning of my graphics cards. This right here is stock, what the system looks like stock. Actually, I'll load up. This is the settings I use to achieve the score of 26. Sometimes when you go around and mess around in the BIOS, it'll reset your overclock. So every time if you make systems and changes in your BIOS, you'll have to open back up the Radeon software and just make sure that your overclocks are still there if you've overclocked it. I was in messing with the BIOS earlier, and then when I saved it, it obviously reset it back to default. But this is the settings that I use to get 26,000 on Timespy. These are all the settings and things that I've shown are stable overclocks. I have no issues with them. Obviously, the silicon can vary. Not every CPU and not every graphics card can achieve these because there's obviously some variance between the chips, but these are the timings or the settings that overclocks that I use for my graphics card. For my graphics card, all of these work perfectly stable. I can game for hours and hours with no crashes with this. Running 104 on the memory. I'm running an undervolt at 1005. Max frequency is 3275. And minimum is 2900. And I've increased the power limit to 15%. The thing with this 7900 XT is this card is basically underpowered. AMD only chose to put two 8-pin connectors on this card. It really should have had 3. believe that they probably did that to help with their segmentation of their graphics cards because they didn't want you to be able to overclock your 7900 XT and get similar performance to a 7900 XTX because they wanted to upsell for the 7900 XTX. Obviously, overclocking on this card will be different than a 7900 XTX because this card is really power limited. You'll notice that I can actually tune my memory even faster. Um, I I left the memory timings from default, like with the 6000 series cards, I would always turn that to fast timings. But I found with this card, as you crank up the memory uh, overclock and speed up the memory, it actually starts drawing. The memory will draw more power to overclock itself uh, from the card, and with the card being limited, it actually causes the clock speeds to drop. So you'll notice your card you may be able to increase your memory timings, and they'll run and they won't cause any stability issues, but you'll notice your card will start actually getting slower. So the old way of uh, overclocking cards is usually you start with your memory first, right? So you overclock your memory as fast as you can get it before it starts corrupting or crashing. Then you go back and you increase your timings. Well, with the 7900 XT, because of its power, once you start overclocking the memory, the timings for the chip actually will start to slow down because it's basically power starved. So you'll get more performance out of a 7900 XT, leaving your memory even stock, completely stock, and increasing your clock speeds will yield better performance out of the card. So, highly recommend if you're tuning your card uh, to focus on increasing the chip clock speeds over the tuning the VRAM because, like I said, the card's very power starved. But this will conclude basically my overview of that and review of my overclocks and performance. Have a good day. Thank you.